call the Johnston City Council meeting number 24-11 to order. Cindy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Cope,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Ready,
Here.
Burkhart,
Here.
Evans.
I want to welcome everyone that is in the audience this evening. If you are here for an item that is on the agenda, we would ask you to wait for that item to come up to address the council at that time. If you're here for an item that is not on the agenda, there would be an opportunity under public communications to address the council. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And whenever we have some young people in the audience, we ask if they would be willing to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I see at least one, maybe even more than one, but would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Yeah. Want to come up? Why don't you come forward here? Join us up here.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. What's your name?
Max.
Max? Thank you, Max. You did a great job. Next item on the agenda is the agenda approval. Mike, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I request that we move item P, consider resolution 24-159, approving compensation for audit grade work to the end of the non-consent agenda.
Any other changes, council? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move.
Second. We have a motion and a second discussion. Can you vote, please?
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to public communications. We have one scheduled public communication this evening, and it's a proclamation proclaiming June 7th, 2024 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. We have a proclamation here, and I would invite everyone who has orange or who would want to join us to come to the front of the room while I read the proclamation. Are you sure? Yeah, there'll be a picture. First of all, I want to thank glasses on. So this is a proclamation declaring June 7th, 2024 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the city of Johnston, Iowa. Whereas in 2023, 42,967 Americans died as a result of gun violence, averaging about 117 individuals every day. Of those deaths, nearly 1,700 were children. And whereas the U.S. gun rate of gun deaths, 10.8 per 100,000 people, is much higher than most other developed countries, like Canada, that has a gun rate death of 2.2 per 100,000, Germany with 1.2, and the United Kingdom with 0.2. And whereas, according to the Centers for Disease Control, 367 Iowans died from a gun-related death in 2023, a rate of 11.2 deaths per 100,000 people. While Iowa's rate of gun deaths is low compared to other states, 10th from the bottom, one death due to gun violence is too many. And whereas, globally, Most gun deaths are homicides. In the United States, most are suicides. Of the nearly 43,000 Americans who died from firearms in 2023, 24,090, or 61%, committed suicide using a gun. And whereas, while most adults whose deaths involve a gun are suicides, the majority of children and teens killed by gunfire are victims of homicide. In 2023, 1,682 children were killed by gunfire. And whereas 2023 marked the second most violent school year since 1999, with 38 shootings. 21 students and adults were killed in those shootings, and 42 were injured. On January 6th of this year, Iowans were shocked to hear of the school shooting in our own state, in Perry, where a 17-year-old killed a sixth grader and a high school principal and wounded 5 others. And whereas local officials and law enforcement, in partnership with local violence intervention activists and resources, know their communities best and are most familiar with the local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their residents safe. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever, as the number of firearm homicides, suicides, and non-fatal shootings, calls to domestic violence hotlines, and school shootings are increasing across our country. Whereas Johnston elected officials and the Johnston Police Department are committed to reducing gun violence, encouraging responsible gun ownership and use, and keeping firearms out of the hands of dangerous people in order to keep our community safe. And whereas June is recognized as National Gun Violence Awareness Month, and orange, a color that symbolizes the value of human life, will be worn by Americans across our country during the first weekend in June to bring awareness about gun violence and to honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. Now, therefore, I, Paula Deerenfeld, Mayor of the City of Johnston, Iowa, and on behalf of the entire Johnston City Council, declare June 7, 2024 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and call upon all residents to wear orange on June 7th through June 9th, and to support our local elected officials, law enforcement, schools, businesses, and other organizations in efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value all human lives. I will be signing this proclamation and presenting it to you. So, again, this is an important issue, and you can tell from the statistics that I read that it's one that has a huge impact on our communities and our society in general, and it's one that we should all pay attention to and get involved in trying to find some solutions in reducing those tragic numbers that I shared with you. So I will now turn to.
Hi, I'm Hope Johnson. I actually live in Clive, but I missed our own city's proclamation. I really appreciate Johnston reading the entire proclamation and taking this issue seriously, and for doing it at least 2 years in a row. So thank you for that.
Rod Stevens, Johnston resident. Lane Rasmussen, Johnston resident. I appreciate the support of this proclamation and taking all steps necessary to end gun violence.
Julie Hill, Johnston resident. Just want to say thank you to the City Council and to you, Mayor, for signing this. I think it's definitely very important, not only for our community, but for everywhere, as you can see from the stats. So thank you.
Jill Krevling, resident. Cindy Wilson, Johnston resident.
Pat Martin, Johnston resident. I support reasonable gun control measures. I think we desperately need them, and I think this is a good step.
Matt Gibson, Ankeny resident, and I agree. I think this is a great step towards reducing gun violence. I think we need to acknowledge the problem before we can start to work toward a solution. This is my son, Milo Gibson.
My name is Max Gibson, and I think resident of Ankeny, Iowa. and I think it's a great idea to help reduce gun violence.
And I'm Katie Jensen Gibson, also a resident of Ankeny. So again, just very appreciative that you guys are willing to partner with this effort. So it's not all resident or all communities around the Wenatchee that are willing to participate. So really, really appreciate the time that you took to read that for us.
Again, I want to thank you all for being here. I'm going to quickly sign this. Absolutely. That's why I want to get it signed. Maybe squeeze in a little bit. Okay, we are still under public communications. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? So come forward and give us your name and your address, please.
Brad Lair, L-A-I-R, 7019 Northwest River Drive. And two things I want to make comment to. The first is what's going on with my neighbor, Ellipsis. Very concerned since I've lived in the house we're in since 1996 that the level of issues that are coming into that place have changed. And they've been great neighbors for most of the time. And now every time I walk the dog, there's police presence, there's kids coming through the yard, there's more issues with what's happening at that facility. I've read through Iowa code, not sure that they're necessarily fully out of the code, but very concerned that they're bringing in a different level of problem to the facility that is nicely placed in a residential neighborhood. puts, I think, other youth at the facility in danger. It's putting, I think, the public in danger. Unfortunately, it's even led to a death here recently, just feet from my own house. And I think it's incumbent on the city to maybe explore with Ellipsis and with the state why we are now getting a different child into a place that if they were looking to buy that land and start, I think the city would never allow them in under these circumstances. And I would like it if the city would take some steps to return a well-respected neighbor instead of letting them build a fence around the property, which I think will degrade property values and turn this more into a minimum security facility than it would a residential comprehensive facility. The other comment, this is very personal, is after 4.5 years, I still don't have Metro net, and I realize that they're the only provider that can come to this city, and I would like some action to make sure that all citizens who want fiber are able to get it. For some reason, they are not coming down to the recorder. We've been told, I don't know how many times when we call, because we signed up in 2020, that I have it in the fall, we'll have it here, we'll have it here. And every time we call, they're not coming. And since that's a contract, I think, between the city and Metronet, I'd like to maybe have some action on making sure they're providing all citizens of Johnston access to fiber optic cable.
I don't believe that we have a sole use contract with Metronet, so when you made your statement that they're the only.
That was my understanding. Nobody else has come in.
No, people are still able to buy, that you can choose between whatever your options are. We don't have a single use contract with Metronet.
I think we asked staff to respond to that.
Yeah, in fact, cities can't enter into an exclusive franchise agreement anymore.
Is there an agreement at all?
I don't
When they
believe
gave
there's an
Okay.
agreement.
All
We
right.
don't have a franchise.
Strike that, don't worry about it. I'll deal with it. Thanks.
Now,
Thank you.
and I would say we encourage Metronet to build out the entire community. So I think the council, we know it's a utility, right? Just like electricity, telecom, and high-speed internet's really important. So we'll certainly keep pushing them. But
That would be nice.
yeah.
Okay.
This will encourage all of those providers to do it, right? I mean, I think we all would wish everybody who is a provider of that service that they would make Johnston a priority in that market, right? So it's not just exclusively a Metronet issue. It's an
Point
issue.
out the service we currently get. In October, Mediacom cut my CenturyLink cable while burying my neighbor's cable, which had been sitting on top of the driveway for 9 months. And now my CenturyLink cable, since last October, is still sitting above ground. Can't even get them to come out and bury simple cable. So,
And I think that's
so
part of
competition is necessary.
exactly. I think that's part of the challenge. We struggled as a city in getting some of those providers that you mentioned to take this issue more seriously, which is frustrating. I don't think this is a Metronet issue, but some of those other providers you mentioned too that I think have really left the city in a bad spot too. So it's a broader issue than just Metronet from my perspective.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? How's the coffee business?
I am Mark Egley, 132 Oakcrest Boulevard, just up the street. Like the previous gentleman spoke here. I almost 18, 19 was murdered. It was dark. I drive by there every night home from my work. And I understand why there wasn't lights up now. It scared me that I was going slow because of the deer. That's the only reason I don't think I ran over the officer. And in our neighborhood, we are constantly having to deal with the runaway children. And I'm here tonight as a precursor to actions that I've already started. And for decades, since I started working with Governor Robert Ray and Sheriff Bob Rice, I'm known as the golf pro who runs youth programs throughout the community. Snyder and I are running refugee programs just up at my golf driving range up the street. My cousin Carol was the juvenile court judge in Polk County for decades. And it was always constant that she would say those she saw in juvenile court are the same ones she's seeing in adult court later on. And we have the best working relationship being Iowans. I'm very familiar with our mayor, and I've started working with Democrat and Republican senators and congressmen and law enforcement that we have a situation. I've never been to jail, but I've been in the jail many, many, many times because of the work with Sheriff Snyder and Sheriff Rice. And right now I have an education degree also. And I've run programs with the Youth Homes of Iowa in the past. I've been to many celebratory sessions where the young people had made great achievements in life and recovered their lives. And some of them are working there today. And I believe now that we are in a situation where we need to deal with legislation. As most of you, I hope, know, many of the court records of the juvenile situations are sealed. But knowing dozens of judges over the years, they have latitude. And I think it's imperative that our city council is aware of the hundreds and hundreds of trips that our Johnston police officers are having to make there. And they're subtracting them to other emergency services that could be routed elsewhere. And so tonight, I want to present to you of seeing the change. I'm not here to pick on ellipsis because when I don't know the facts, I don't have the data, I'm not going to make accusations. But I know that so many dollars are allocated for every person and child, no matter what their legal situation is. But in my discussions in recent days with our legislators and law enforcement, I would like to know, are we there or are we headed to having a penitentiary up the street or a jail without bars, without guards, without protection for the members of the community? And our community involves the youth that are being neglected at the facility now, that are being assaulted, that are being abused in ways that we all find appalling. KT was one of the most giving people to the youth over at LifeServe, what she did for the children at the high school. I'd like to recommend the city council makes a special day for her because she was one of the most valuable members of our community. And I want each of you to know, I think you probably know, but I want to be on the record that each of you knows that we have citizens in our community that are being abused. And do we have students, youth, that are being housed at this facility that should be incarcerated someplace else? And I'm not coming from a two or three week situation where we lost somebody. This has been a concern of mine since 1979 when Governor Ray called me to his office on a situation. And I know I'm older than most of you. You probably weren't around in 1979. But the legislators I'm working with right now, we have Kelly Garcia that's in charge of the Department of Human Services. And your contacts, Mayor, I am so proud that you're my mayor because I know what you do on Capitol Hill. And one other time, I spoke last night out at Hyperion, I have a little clout because of what I've done for the community. And I was called in one time where a person couldn't get into the legislators, and many of them worked for me as little kids. And I wrote letters to about 20 or 30 of them and said, I need to see you now. And I've used my clout once before. And that day, we had Democrats and Republicans come out to the hallway, end up having lunch with my friend, and we took the parental rights away from rapists that day. And we got legislation done like that. And it went through 100% to nothing from every stage. And I think we're in a situation right now in our community, like we don't have a very big turnout in here this evening, because I don't think the entire community of Johnston Urbandale, Beaverdale, know the magnitude of what might be happening in our community because we have a containment center that used to be a reaching out, helping hand for the youth of our community. And I think we need to reach out to the employee, to help the employees, the neighbors that surround the area, that we have to protect the children that are in there because they need us really badly. And so from the city council, I would like, we've got the friends to do this, from the governor, lieutenant governor, across the board. We know them, and we know they care about the youth of our community. So from a city council standpoint, I think this may be one of the unique times to think that, do we have to affect state law right now? And I don't want to wait 2 weeks till the next Monday where we have another meeting. And I would only like to throw out a suggestion that we do something that protects all of these. And I'm of the opinion that the gentleman sitting over here in the law enforcement, he needs to be protected. And I'd like to ask a question you don't have to answer, but do any of you know that law enforcement of our community are being assaulted at this facility? That we have to know, serve, honor, and protect is one of the mottos of these. But what about us, the citizens and our council? Can we make the same promise to him and all the other officers of Johnston, Iowa? And it goes beyond Johnston, beyond our borders, because a kid can go from here to there to another community. And I'm tired of things making the 10 o'clock news, the shootings, what the previous proclamation was for. And I'm here to be a friend to this city council, and so you can be a friend to all of the community. And what can we do legislatively? And we had a great discussion last night. We can get this done and protect every child out there, 100% of them, and some of them may have to be someplace else. But I hope you hear my point, that are we a jail in Johnston with no bars, no guards, and no immediate backup, and no security? So it's a unique issue of our time, but it's real. And I don't want to see hundreds of calls out there the next 365 days that endangers so many people. So thank you, and please help. Good night. Thanks, Paul.
I know we have a couple of, thank you. I know we have a couple more individuals that I think want to speak on this issue as well.
Time. My name is Bill Stoneman. This is my wife Denise. We live at 5715 Northwest 72nd Place here in Johnston. We live just to the north side of Ellipsis. A lot of what we wanted to talk about tonight has already been said, and thank you, and thank everybody for your time. But our concern is that in the last, I would say, 3 years, that there's been a lot more incidences on our street. There's been a lot more police presence, not just looking out for our safety, but looking for juveniles, looking for runaways. There's been other instances, I think a lot of them you all may be already aware of. And when we first moved in, we've been here since 2009. We canvassed the neighborhood, knocked on doors, and there was never any issues with the youth home. And that has changed in the last 3 years substantially for us, whether it's youth that are just walking on the street, which is fine. We've had youth walking on the street for years. You know, they might go down to come and go to get a candy bar. They might be walking down the street. But now it's, they're, shall we say, very rude in their interactions with us. You know, we're going to do whatever we want, you know, and it's changed a lot. And again, I don't know the facts or the numbers, but it does appear that the level of the juveniles there has changed in the last several years. And my opinion is that a fence is not the solution to change the culture. I would much rather be in a facility that doesn't have walls, that I can walk around instead of being behind a fence, because I'm going to be looking at that fence. How can I get over that? And when I get over that fence, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna, this is a residential neighborhood. Am gonna go get a car? Am I gonna get into somebody's house? I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the families that live there, the grandchildren that come there. Um, you know, and I'm just concerned about the safety. I'm concerned about our safety now. For not necessarily myself, I can take care of myself, but there's others that can't. And it's a shame to me that it looks like, and again, I'm making a supposition here, that they're bringing a higher level of juvenile offenders, of offenders in, and they haven't really done anything except call the police to take care of it. And again, I just don't think a fence is going to correct it, because then what's next? Are they going to be asked to bring a higher level of offender in because they have a fence now? And I know there's the no reject, no expel policy, if you will, there, and that's quite concerning, especially now um, that you know, they don't have. Again, I'm just reading from what I've heard from what Chris has said and things, and it's just concerning. I'm very compassionate about the children that are there, and I care for them very much. But I'm also concerned about the low-level offenders, maybe they're with higher-level offenders, and what good is that going to do for them?
I would like to add that I think in the statistics, I think going back like a year or two, there's been 66 offenses where charges were brought against the youth that are there, and many of them are for assaults, you know, on other youth that are at that facility. And there has been one incident that a neighbor shared. One of the youth from there did approach their small child. I don't think it got to anything severe, but you know, it's worrisome.
So we would, you know, we would like to see the facility back to what it was designed to be. You know, back in 1943 or whenever, you know, whenever they started, and that's changed in the last several years. In our opinion and what we've observed, and I think what a lot of people have observed here as well. So.
Well, Denise and Bill and Mark and Brad, I just want to first of all thank you for coming this evening and sharing your concerns with us. That facility has been in our community for 85 years, and you know, it's always existed well in the neighborhoods in Johnston. We work with each other well. We've supported the organization out there and the kids that they're trying to treat. So, you know, and we want that to continue. We want to continue to have kind of a relationship where everybody can work together for the betterment of these kids. We are hearing your concerns. And obviously the situation that happened out there a couple of weeks ago, you know, creates a situation that we just can't ignore. I mean, we've heard some concerns. Now we, you know, now we, you know, it is time to all of us get serious about what is happening at that facility. We're having conversations with the administration at Ellipsis. We'll be having conversation with people in the state government, and you know, our expectation is that things will change there. We can't have a situation where kids are at risk that are there, that staff is at risk that are there, or the neighbors in the area you know, don't feel safe and at risk. And so we're going to have those conversations, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to find some solutions that everybody can be comfortable with. So
Did have a get together on Sunday, and the seemed to be the largest majority were, especially those that were very close to the facility, it was not to put a fence up because that's only a temporary solution to a bigger problem. I think the Mark addressed pretty well also. So thank you for your time.
Yes, and I just wanted to comment that prior to the incident of that woman unfortunately losing her life, we as a neighborhood had already been exploring information. I had been starting to gather information from the city. So it didn't take that incident for us to be concerned. We've met, and I've shared that with you, we've met with Ellipsis a couple of times. So it didn't take that tragic event to bring us together as a neighborhood to address what's happening.
Understand.
Thank you.
Thank you again. You bet. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? If not, we'll move on to public hearings. We have two public hearings this evening. Item 4A, conduct a public hearing and consider approval of the first reading of ordinance number 1122, amending chapters 176, 177, and 185 of Johnston zoning ordinance, PC case 24-18. We'll open this public hearing at 7:36.
Okay, so with the passing of House File 2388 relating to the regulation of styles and materials for residential buildings, building exteriors, staff has looked through our current code and realized that we need to update that to reflect and better get into alignment with that. The Planning and Zoning Commission board met last Monday, and they recommend approval of PC case, and staff does as well. The things that we are looking at are very simple and kind of pointed, where anything less than 13 units can't be regulated anymore. So we're looking to update our code to do anything 13 units or above can be, keep maintaining our current standards, just anything that 13, that 12 units or less, we can't regulate anymore. With that, we're also looking to add some language that already exists in our code, some other sections regarding our exterior, how our exterior looks on the facades look on our current buildings. As we see here, and I have it pulled up on section 176.1, we're just looking to add, making sure that any buildings that the exterior configurations aren't the exact same, so we're not getting those cookie cutter, same unit, same exact things, building styles right next to each other. And then we're looking to add that to just sections 176.7, dwelling units, townhouses, as well as residential care facilities. Besides that, we're just looking to update anything that says from 3 to 13. It's that simple. I can answer any questions.
Have any questions?
The one question I just had was sort of on accessory building.
Yeah.
So those are, so it's our interpretation that the bill applies not just to design standards for single-family homes, but also for accessory structures.
Yes.
And when I'm talking accessory structures, I'm talking about a garage. I'm not talking about an accessory dwelling unit.
Right. Yes, that's what we looked at, but looking through our code, there was nothing in our code at this time that we looked at and thought necessitated a change in that. Everything that we looked at was more the amount of units that were there and making sure that we were up to date there. So there's nothing.
Yeah, and I understand that. I just historically,
Yep.
when we had a very significant issue in the building, obviously knows all the history about it, 5 to 10 years ago, we changed our code as it related to accessory structures to make, well, and so just, I know Dave will be sensitive to this issue. And I looked through the revision and it looks like it doesn't make any change. But like, for instance, I know that I sort of thought like if you had a house that had brick on it and your accessory structure then also had to kind of match that facade. But even reading our language, I'm not sure that's necessarily required. So I want to make sure that we're, to any extent that we have to, if we have to modify our accessory structure regulations, they're as limited as possible. The modifications are as limited as possible.
Yeah, and we did make some tweaks to the accessory structure language when we did the full code update in 2023. We were having some administration issues with some of that. The current state code change applies only to the material, so we can't regulate the
I think that modification we made, I don't know, almost 10 years ago, not quite that long ago, but has been really successful. And I think as a result, this accessory structure, especially larger accessory structures that are more kind of fit well with the main dwelling. And I want to make sure, and then obviously looking at it, it doesn't look like we modified that, but it looks like we just gave more numbers. But just, when I was thinking about this bill, I was thinking about the building materials on the main property and not having implications on the accessory structure. So still sensitive to that.
Any other questions for Jacob? If not, this is a public hearing on this item. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 7:42. Do we have a motion to approve first reading of ordinance number 1122?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 4B, conduct a public hearing and consider approval of the following items related to stormwater management. First reading of ordinance number 1120, amending chapter 87, post-construction stormwater management of the Johnston Code of Ordinances, resolution 24-151, adopting the City of Johnston supplemental specifications to the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual. And we'll open this public hearing at 7:43. David?
Good evening. We have tonight before you both a resolution and an ordinance. And again, this public hearing is related to recent state legislation, in this case, Senate File 455, which regulates the city's ability to regulate topsoil and stormwater management requirements. This specific item is focused just on stormwater management requirements and is a public hearing because in our current code and in our proposed changes, we're adopting the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual, and anytime we're adopting a code such as that, that's a universal code or a more standardized code, we're required to do that by public hearing. Later on tonight's non-consent agenda, we'll also be addressing some changes to address topsoil requirements that are also part of Senate File 455. The nature of the ordinance is quite technical, and so Blair Spots with Foth, our engineer with Foth, is here tonight. So when you have that deep dive question about how stormwater calculations are done, I'm not going to answer those. Blair's going to handle that for me. But I'll try to give you the high level non-engineer speak, and please stop me at any point if you have questions. The real basis of this ordinance is the city's ability to regulate release rate from storms. And it's the technical side of matching like year storms and what sort of starting conditions we have to use. The city has the ability to regulate above and beyond that as we do today. However, those both engineering, construction, and easement acquisition costs would have to be borne by the city rather than by the development. So as a result of the legislation, we have worked through our current regulations, and in particular, our adoption of the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual. Similar to SUDAS, it's a statewide manual that we use. We adopted it by reference in our current code and have pullouts, basically have a supplemental spec where we say, here's the manual and here's how we're amending it, or here's how we're applying it. And so the bulk of the changes that you're going to see tonight are actually going to be in that resolution where we're amending that supplemental spec to the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual. And our changes to the actual code are a little bit smaller. I'm going to highlight those, and there's a red line included in the packet of the ordinance. And so our adoption language has changed, and we note that the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual under this state legislation is now the preferred alternative specification. And so that language has changed. And then we further define sort of new development and redevelopment. We're actually ratcheting down a little bit, or how we would apply stormwater requirements in a situation of redevelopment down from 10,000 square feet of new impervious down to 5,000 square feet. And so there's a few changes related to that. And that affects some of the exemptions just by the way it was rewritten. As I noted, the bulk of the changes really occur in the stormwater or the supplemental specs to the Iowa Stormwater Management Manual, and in particular, beginning on the bottom of page 4 of that document. Section 2.1 is a new section where we're establishing how the release rates would be calculated using Iowa Stormwater Management Manual and in relation to the new Iowa Code section. Section 2.2 is essentially our current code, and so that we're maintaining that and saying that for any public project, any city project, that's the standard we would use. So by doing this, we're not making any changes to how we would approach any city-funded project. Rather, we're providing the relief for the private constructed projects. The one thing I would note in our review of the legislation is the legislation does not address stormwater quality, and so we talk a lot about stormwater quality just in general and included in our stormwater requirements, and that would be 1.25 inches rain. 90% of our rainfall events in Iowa are 1.25 inches or less, and for those pursuant to our NPDES permit, we're required to reduce the total suspended solids by 80%. And so you don't have to change your release rate to address water quality, and so that's one method, but there are multiple methods to address water quality, and so nothing in what we're proposing here would make any changes to our requirements for water quality, just water quantity. So our basins would get smaller, our flood control would get smaller, but we'd still be addressing water quality to the same extent that we are today. That's a really quick, high-level, non-technical, hopefully, summary of sort of the changes before you. We did, after the last work session, convene a committee meeting with council members Cope and Burkhart and the mayor to kind of review this in a little bit more in depth. So I'll pause there and take any questions.
Council, any questions?
David, I have a question. How are they going to achieve the water? So you've said that water basins will get smaller or not as deep because that was dealing with quantity. But dealing with quality, it's not going to change. We're still going to have a restrictive or suitable quality standard. How will developers implement that? What do you foresee happening?
I think the same methods we're doing today, infiltration, you can do mechanical treatment. If there's sufficient, you can pass the water over a sufficient amount of grass swale, you can make water quality. It's just getting those suspended solids out of the water. One method is to change your release rate. And so nothing in this would prohibit them from using that as one method. So putting some sort of orifice plate on the outlet to address just water quality. But we're not requiring that method. It's really up to the design engineer how they meet that standard or how they meet that requirement.
And when you say the standard and the requirement, you're talking about the reducing by 80%.
Right, the water quality. Yep.
And so this ISWIM document, can you tell us just a little bit more who develops that or what's the process? Is it basically best management, best practices?
It is. It was developed over the last probably 15 years or so. It's, I think, owned technically by the Iowa DNR. The Iowa Stormwater Education Partnership was heavily involved in it. And it really was written to be the best practices of how to address stormwater specific to Iowa, specific to Iowa conditions as far as rain events, soil conditions, those types of things. I believe most cities where there's development occurring have adopted it in some form or fashion, as we did. And it's meant to be a best management guide. And so what our supplemental specs do is kind of go in further and say, if it's recommended in the guide, in ISWIM, we might say it's required, those types of things, or this is the standard which we'll use here, this is the number that's required here in Johnston. So it's specific for us. So we've made tweaks to it to make it specific to us. And it's under, I will say it's under constant refinement. So they're reviewing chapters of the document. I haven't printed it out lately, but I'm sure it's about probably a 4-inch binder by now.
Yeah, but I think it was helpful with.
Always under refinement.
And that local governments through ISWEP play a role in kind of fine tuning it and figuring it out.
Yep.
So it's not just a state agency that's very kind of separated from the real
It's not a static document either. So anytime anything comes up, new research, new science, new practices, it's under constant refinement.
Other questions for David? If not, this is the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 7:52. We have 2 items for the council's consideration. The first being the first reading of ordinance number 1120. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second?
We have a motion and a second.
I'm sorry.
Any discussion?
I just want to say that, first of all, I wish we didn't have to be here because this is one of the worst pieces of legislation I've seen the legislature pass in the last 5 to 10 years. They've had that's a long list. There's lots of competition for that. But from a local government standpoint and from a local government water quality, and for especially the work that the city of Johnston and other cities in the metro, but especially here in Johnston, have done to really make improvements in our water quantity and water quality management over the past several years, and to have the legislature really ignore those was really disappointing. This is a bill that barely passed. In fact, the first time they tried to pass it on the House floor, it only got 47 votes. And so only because they really strong-armed it did it finally pass the House. So there's a lot of folks in the legislature who also think this is a bad bill. So I was very concerned, as well as others, that we do everything we could to make sure we took as strong a stance as possible to put something together that did address the water quality side, that because water quality is not something that's addressed in the legislation. So hopefully, with what we're doing on the water quality side, that will be able for us to maintain a lot of the really solid stormwater management practices we've got in our community. But I'm afraid that the advocates for this legislation likely aren't going to continue to promote bad ideas at the Capitol, and we'll have to be very vigilant on that. So, but I think this is a good first step. And I also just want to point out one of the things that, from a process standpoint, as we talked about, the legislation goes into effect July 1. And so we have 2 council meetings between now and July 1. And so I think the preferred process that our little subcommittee talked about would be that was approved tonight and approved at the June 17th council meeting. We would waive the reading of the June 17th meeting and adopt and publish so that it would be in effect on July 1. So that any developer that brought in a development or subdivision on July 1 or after would have to go with these rules as opposed to having some question about which rules are in place. So just hopefully that's the process that we're able to follow, because I think that'll put the city in the best possible stance.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes.
Pope,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready.
Motion passed. Moving on to the consent agenda. Oops, we have the other resolution. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-151?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Pope,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart,
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to the consent agenda. We moved the item P over to the non-consent agenda. With that change, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to the non-consent agendas, item 7A. Consider approval of the second reading of ordinance number 1119, amending the Johnson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 65, to modify the locations of stop intersections.
No changes from the previous reading and no additional public comment.
Move approval. We have a motion and a second discussion.
Would it be appropriate to also consider um, second reading, third reading, adopting and publishing?
Staff would have no objection to that.
Let's take the vote on second reading first. Cindy?
Ready, Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Motion passed. Do we have an additional motion?
I'll make a motion to waive third reading and to adopt and publish of ordinance 1119.
Second. We have a motion and a second discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7B, consider approval of the second reading of ordinance number 1118, amending the Johnson Code of Ordinances by amending section 69.09 to modify parking on 1900 Drive.
Once again, no changes since the previous reading and no additional public comment.
Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve second reading of ordinance number 1118?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Cindy, vote please.
Coe.
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Motion passed.
As long as there's no objection from staff, I would move to waive third reading and adopt and publish ordinance 1118.
Objection from staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7C, consider approval of resolution number 24-148, approving the preliminary plat for the reserve at Chester Park, Plat 3, outside the city limits. The subject property is located within unincorporated Polk County, west of Northwest 107th Street, near the intersection of Northwest 111th Avenue and Northwest 112th Street. PC case 24-08. Jacob?
So the applicant Kimberly Development Corporation has submitted a preliminary plat for the subdivision of 19.361 acres into 14 rural residential lots and 2 street lots. The property is located within the boundaries of the city of Johnston's future land use map within our 2-mile radius, and it is currently identified as suburban residential. While the overall project density does not reach the lower limits of the planned land use category, it does not exceed it as well. The proposed development is compatible with the future land uses identified within the city of Johnston's planning boundaries. Considering that this plat develops the remainder of the land presently owned by the developer, staff recommends that the development proceed as planned. Future developments adjoining this site to the south and to the west should be more firmly held to those planned future uses identified in the Thrive 2040 comprehensive plan, and should furthermore be held to the same design standards. Since the property is not within the city of Johnston's limits, no city zoning designation is applied to the subject property. Polk County zoning classification for the property is rural residential. As proposed, the development is in compliance with all the county zoning's requirements. This subject property is proposed to be serviced by Xena Rural Water District. Sanitary sewer is presently unavailable to the subject property. Each home will have one on-site septic systems, and then the site will utilize public storm sewer, county public storm sewer, private storm sewer. I can answer any questions.
Council have any questions for Jacob?
And
don't have a question, I have a comment. If you ever have a chance to talk to the people doing the drawings, it doesn't make sense to have a tree location map that does not include the grading. It makes no sense.
Other comments or questions?
So just from a traffic flow standpoint, so do these properties, do they access, do they go up 107th Street and then?
Yeah, the subdivision includes the extension of two roadways, the northwest 111th Avenue and northwest 112th, as well as the creation of a new cul-de-sac, northwest 111th Court. So all traffic will be funneled to 107th Street via connection with the intersection of 111th Avenue. So in total, lots 1 through 3 will include 46 lots, with the roadway to support up to 50.
Other questions for Jacob?
I'm just really confused because, so these are, there's existing homes in this area, but I can't find them anywhere.
It'll be right.
I can see it on your materials. I just can't, if you asked me to find that on Google Maps right now, I would fail. And that's usually kind of something I like to be able to figure out how to do, so. But it's fine.
Just to the southeast of Jester Park.
So it's pretty far north.
Yeah. But here's 106th Avenue.
So it's not 107th Street in Johnston. It's, even though it looks like one of the maps, our city limits.
Yeah, so our city limits are right here for it. And then if the subject property will be right here for it. So if I zoom out here. Third.
Yeah, it's just, from your map, scale is challenging, but that's fine.
Other questions for Jacob? Jacob, I've lost track of where we're, okay. Here we are. If not, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-148?
So moved.
Second. Motion and second discussion. Cindy, roll please.
Councilmember Redding,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7D, consider approval of the following items related to regulations regarding erosion and sediment control. First reading of ordinance number 1121, amending chapter 88, erosion and sediment control of the Johnston Code of Ordinances. Resolution number 24-152, amending and adopting the supplemental specifications to the SUDAS standard specifications for the city of Johnston.
Good evening. Once again, this is relating to the same Senate File 455 that we talked about under public hearings. This specific ordinance and resolution is related to the topsoil requirements that are part of that legislation. Chapter 88 covers erosion and sediment control, and essentially the legislation prohibits the city from establishing a minimum amount of topsoil that's required to be placed on a construction site. And so the ordinance would amend chapter 88 really to kind of clean up some language. Go to the first section. Clean up some language in a couple of different sections specific to the information we request related to topsoil requirements. In particular, noting that they'd have to provide that information. We can still require the information, and that we can still preserve topsoil. We just can't specify a specific number of inches. So the new redlined O and P there in chapter 88 really gets to what information we'd be looking for as part of a grading permit. And noting that our expectation pursuant to NPDS General Permit number 2 is that preservation of topsoil would be contained on site. And the second area of change under Chapter 88 really falls under monitoring procedures, where we clean up some language and really kind of make our language match the state legislation, where we'd require prior to the discontinuance of an NPDES permit, number 2, or an issuance of a certificate of occupancy, that we'd require a third-party verification of how, up front with the grading permit, we're going to ask them what they need to do, and at the end, we're going to ask them to document how they did it. This does say that the topsoil should be preserved at the surface because it can't be topsoil if it's buried underground. So we do set that expectation, but we don't set a specific amount. And then consistent with state legislation, we do note that we may request the Department of Natural Resources review any construction site to verify compliance, which is basically language right out of the state legislation. Like our last action item under public hearings, we also adopt this Iowa statewide urban design standards and specifications, or SUDAS, and adopt a special specification or supplemental specification to those. That's the only place in our current requirements where we specifically dictate a specific number of inches of topsoil. In particular, within right-of-way or future right-of-way on any project, 8 inches is currently required. And so the red highlighted language there on the bottom of page 4, the top of page 5 of the supplemental specs as amended would remove the 8-inch requirement for private funded projects, but we'd maintain it for public projects. And there again, it says all on-site topsoil shall be preserved and respread at the surface. That's a very quick highlight of the changes to both the ordinance and SUDAS. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Council, any questions for David? None? We have a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 1141.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Cope?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Motion passed. We have a motion to approve resolution number 24-152.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Cope?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready? Burkhart?
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7E, consider approval of claims in the amount of $17,378,073.18.
Second.
Motion and a second. Sarah, I do have a couple of questions. I've never seen a claims amount this large. Could you tell me what's going on with the Iowa Finance Authority on page 7?
Yep, it's our, June is our debt payment schedule where we pay all of our principal. So I can pull that up really quick.
And I want to,
And then UMB is probably about 12 million.
yeah, so what's going on there?
My UMB one opened before the other one, but that's just the annual principal and interest payments on our debt payments. It included, the breakdown was for UMB 2.2 million for interest and be 10 million on the principal on the UMB loans. And that's a variety, variety going back to approximately 2015 of our annual debt issuances. Um, and then similar would be the IFA would be our our SRF loans on water, sewer, stormwater projects. I can give the breakdown on that as
It
well.
was just a big number.
It is. And also in there, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but increases that is our TIF rebates were also paid.
The what?
And the annual TIF rebates are also included in that 17 million.
Thank you, Sarah. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? City roll, please.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Motion passed. We'll go back and pick up item 6P. Consider resolution number 24-159, approving compensation for out-of-grade work.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Really, in the sake of added transparency, we wanted to pull this off of the consent agenda this evening. As the council is aware, John Schmitz resigned in January, and really much of his duties have been divided between Matt Reiner and Dave Wilberding. These has really required a substantial amount of work on their part for both of these, including additional projects, attending various night meetings, working on and directing various park staff, and just specifically for Matt, for example, just taking on the additional projects, during a time that both Public Works and Parks have their busy season, currently experiencing back-to-back disasters, which has put pressure both on Public Works and Parks. You think about the wind damage in one aspect, but high water on Beaver Creek. Additionally, just additional working with staff and directing staff, working towards trying to streamline and kind of bring together the procedures and policies and practices between two different division staffs, and then additional nights and weekend workload. For Dave, again, additional work through projects including Crown Point, the dog park work that we have ongoing, working with our various boards and commissions, which has taken additional workload, again, night meetings that he's had to attend for those, and then taking on additional responsibilities with a variety of annual events that our community has come to expect and enjoy. So that's some of the rationale. When we looked at this, what we really looked at is saying, okay, if this was not a permanent change, but it's a temporary change, if this was elevated one grade for where these two individuals are, it's approximately $12,000 a year. So our recommendation would be to retroactive pay at a rate of $230 back to January 24th, and continue that rate of pay until such time that those duties are shifted to other individuals, either the park and rec director or other individuals, or until some other point. We've seen that those duties have been otherwise transferred. Funds from this would be covered through the Parks and Rec Department budget. We do currently have funded the Parks and Rec Director, so there is funding there to make these payments. But with that, I'd pause and be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening.
I had received an email from a resident this afternoon questioning why we were doing this. And so decided to pull it off and just have some additional information shared around the reason why this is appropriate in this situation. I think Mike has done a nice job of going through all of the additional tasks that both of these individuals have taken on. Not only asking them to step up to the plate and take on some additional work, but through doing some extraordinary work through some difficult times, and additionally some of the pressures of the city that we're in, we're overcoming events that require some additional attention as well. So thank you, Mike, for sharing that additional information.
Absolutely. And well, I think it's very appropriate too. I mean, given what you said about the work that Matt had done is spot on.
So with that, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-159?
So moved. Second.
ready? Burkhart?
Wholeheartedly, yes.
Pope?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
City administrator, staff comments.
I don't get to do this often, and I don't think anyone else is here to do it, so I'm going to do it. Holly Sealine is out in our audience tonight. Holly is our new library director. She's been on the job for 4 days now. Is that correct? Two. Well, I included the weekend, so I was trying to give you some credit here. So I know we're very excited to have a new library director. So certainly, please talk to Holly as you meet her tonight. You want to make any comments?
Holly, I hope we haven't said or done anything this evening that would scare you away. Oh,
Wait.
so what standard do we have to live up to? That's great. Well, well, we can do those, but we try not to. Welcome, Holly.
Do
Glad to
that
have you on board.
Please don't encourage them because we don't.
That's right.
The only other comment I would like to make is the Family Fest we had. Just an incredible event from my perspective, and really hats off to all the staff, many staff that are not here. It was a fun event. The weather was fantastic. I was a little worried I was going to be pink today because I got a little bit too much sun, but by today it was actually back to normal. So it was a good event. So thank you for all those who attended. And I think we have a couple of comments from staff.
I got one quick one while Matt's going up there. Speaking of events in the yard, the first Sounds of Summer concert series will be Saturday at 7 o'clock. The Trip is the band from 7 to 10.
Genre?
Rock from a variety of eras. Rock, some sort of rock music.
Just wanted to report back to council. We have received the draft school study, traffic study surrounding the schools. The plan for that would be to run that through the Public Works Ad Hoc Committee later this month and then have a presentation to the full council on the work session for July 1st. So I just wanted to give an update there. Thank you.
In a slight segue, I had some conversations with Nikki at the school, so she's aware of that. We're also working to try to schedule a joint session with the school district to talk about a number of items. That would be one of those items on that agenda.
Anything else, Mike, or staff?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Ready?
Yeah, May seems to have been a very eventful month. We had some weather-related incidents, and we had some tragic incidents, and some good news as well. Speaking of which, I would like to thank the first responders for taking care of all the things that happened in the month of May, especially the ellipsis thing, so thank you for that. And also the public works and parks for taking care of all these disasters we had, 2 of them in 1 week. And I had a photo of a tornado going right across my home. So that was that bad. So thank you for taking care of all of those trees and everything else. And presume you're still working on that, but thank you for that. And I also saw that the monthly employee thing that, yes, you said that. There were quite a few new kids born this month. Congratulations to all of those guys. So that's a good news. And there were quite a couple of new employees as well. So welcome to those guys. I don't know, I don't think they are here, but let me know. Other than Holly, I already met her. But welcome to them all. Thank you for everything. Just want to say that May has been a really eventful month, and we have had quite a few incidents. Thank you all for making sure the city of Johnston is safe and sound, and you make it all happen. Thank you guys. Appreciate that.
I had an opportunity, and the mayor was there as well as several folks from the city, to participate in a command retreat that was hosted way back in May. It's hard to go all the way back into May at Camp Dodge, and it was a really amazing event. Well, a couple of things. One, they recognized the city for some partnerships that we did, and that was really the absolute coolest thing was then there was 13 members of the National Guard that became naturalized citizens, and from all over the world. And I had never participated ever in a naturalization ceremony. So the judge who's presiding, who's also a member of the Air National Guard, he swears them all in, and then he gives some remarks. And part of the swearing in is you have to say that I will not no longer follow a potentate or guide from another president. And from your home country, you're no longer under that auspices. You're under American citizen. But the judge, who's a magistrate, federal magistrate judge, made one of the great statements of all time. I thought when he said, "Look, we're asking you to no longer follow the leadership of your home country, but we're not saying that you should abandon your home country." And I thought the way he said that was just really cool and was really, really neat. And in fact, he talked about how that we want you to bring your home country here to us. So I thought it was just a really, really cool thing. So that was great. I really appreciate the National Guard including us, and also recognizing the city for our work on all the different events we've done with them. One thing I do want to say, kind of related to the gun awareness issue, I'm fine with us deciding to turn the lights orange this time, but I think we have to figure out a policy on this. And I think we're really running a significant risk by doing it without a policy, because we've established a precedent now. And to me, when we're doing this, you're using city resources. To me, what if somebody comes forward and says, "I want to put a nativity scene on City Hall grounds"? And that's using city resources. Now we've established a policy where we're recognizing and allowing outside groups to do that. I just think we've really gotten ourselves into what could be a potentially very challenging spot. So I wish we had not made that decision. The decision's been made. We're going to do it, and hopefully it doesn't come to a negative consequence somewhere down the road. But we run the risk of it, and so I'm disappointed by that. I just kind of wanted to share that perspective. I understand the desire, and the citizens in the community feel strongly about it. But if we made the list of all the things that people in our community feel strongly about, I'm not sure all of us would want us, the city, to be involved in having our, in essence, recognizing those things. So I think we have to be really careful how you figure that out. It's one thing to pass a resolution. That's something we can control, and I fully support doing a resolution or what we did tonight. But I have real concerns about using city resources to take that next step, and I just think we need to think about it and have a policy for it. So.
And Mike, why don't you just remind everyone, I think everybody is aware that we are talking about doing a policy. In the meantime, putting a moratorium on any other similar requests. So we don't.
Well, that's the first I've heard about any sort of moratorium.
Okay, well,
so.
then Mike, would you
I
please
mean,
share that?
that's one of the things we'll work on is to get a policy drafted, to get clarity, because there are resources. I know when this came in, they requested specifically, for example, City Hall and the bridge. Staff initially said, that there is a lot of time that goes into programming both of those. And so obviously less time here at City Hall will take a lot more just to travel out there and do the work at the bridge. But you're right, Councilmember Cope, there is just a substantial amount of groups out there in cities that have had these lighting elements in the metro. They've started out with a floodgate of stuff and just found out that, hey, this takes a lot more resources than anyone expected, and so they've pulled it back. I think there's also, if we're going to go down the path of doing more of these, there's other technology we can look at to help make that process a lot easier. So I think there's some questions we'll have with quality of life to figure out how we should best address it.
Yeah, I think there was not a real great communication around this one. I just want to point that out. So I think there's both the fact that the decision was made or this moratorium on doing it is kind of being educated tonight at the dais, and I think there's other ways to do that than that. So I just want to make that point.
Councilmember Kirk.
Three things, just very briefly. The first is a shout out to Clayton, who isn't in attendance, but he pulled together an outstanding group for a true ad hoc committee to discuss the stormwater and topsoil. Between Councilmember Cope, the mayor, and myself, I felt far more educated on that entire process, what city procedure was, and certainly you got to see their hard work come to fruition in what I think was very thoughtful, well crafted, and certainly tweaks that did address what is important to our city, and that is that that we can still control, and that is water quality. I want to share just one quick story about that because it wasn't just Clayton; it was several other staff members, including Dave and Matt and Mike, who are also present. But we also had guests from Foth, and the fact that Josh Bowers was in attendance, and he took his role as an engineer incredibly seriously. And that's exactly what we want in any time we invite guests in. And to the point of he shared something to the extent of, I woke up thinking about this and then weighing in on it. And to me, that was important because he was looking at that and considering it, and certainly didn't have any other cities' ordinances to guide in that regard. In fact, many others are still anticipating what we're going to do as they move forward. So the professionalism by which we employ our own staff and also ask others to think like a resident and think like one of our own is incredible. And I was just grateful for that. I also want to mention I'm currently serving as an alternate for the CIWW board. Councilmember Cope is our head in that regard. And the communication throughout the establishment of that board and that organization has been phenomenal. It's also been a little concerning. And so I at least want to bring something up to light. Within the last couple of weeks, the CIWW water producers are watching nitrate levels within our drinking water. And while they are not of concern at the moment, they have a wonderful plan in place of several different, what I'll call pseudo valves that they can kind of control to keep us in check. They are continuing to watch. And while it seems like we're not in a drought or that we should have to cut back on watering or other things like that because the water has been plentiful, a larger demand for water means that we need to amp up all of our resources to try to reduce those nitrate levels. And so there have been preparations over the last day just to prepare some of those communications if we do need to. So in preparation for that, I actually would say, hey, watch your water consumption. It's going to help all of us out and certainly help make an impact so that we don't have to employ more costly and in some cases more difficult ways to get the pure and beautiful water that we all like to consume. Last thing, I'm just so proud of all of our Johnston teachers and students. They've made it through another year. The teachers are almost through another year. I have some firsthand knowledge of one in my own household who can't wait to be able to finally say that the school year is over, but they have just a couple more days. But all of our students, and especially our graduates, deserve our commendation and our respect for all of their achievements. Making it through a year and their accomplishments and learning are outstanding. And with that said, I do want to highlight the Johnston boys soccer team for winning their second state tournament championship this last Saturday. So much talent and so fun to see them representing our school and certainly our community. So,
Zebra cakes all around.
And zebra cakes and Mountain Dew next meeting.
Councilwoman Martin?
I'll be brief. I really, really appreciated all the hard work that Public Works put into taking care of our neighbors and the city with tree removal. We had somebody in a tractor from the city on our streets within an hour of the first storm, I think it was, coming through. And that was very impressive. And I was very proud to be part of the city for that. So thank you.
I think I'll jump on Councilman Reddy's theme of, despite all the challenges that we faced over the last couple of weeks, and again, I just want to say, I regularly hear from our residents about all of their appreciation for our response to all of the things that we've had going on with it, the tornadoes and the down trees and the flooding, and on and on and on. I hear everywhere I go the appreciation for our staff and the response to it. So thanks again for that. Cedarville on the dam on Saturday morning, but we had, Dam to Dam that starts, or Dam to Des Moines that starts, here, at Johnston. We have Farmers Market coming up. We've got, as has already been noted, Sounds of not Sounds of Silence, but Sounds of Summer coming up this week. I mean, it's just one thing right after another. So, lots of great opportunities for family type of activities, in our community. And again, none of that would be possible without the support of all of our great staff. So thank you for making this, again, the best community in the world to live in. So really appreciate it. Anything else for the good